Over 8,000 applications were submitted for assistance under the Social Security COVID-19 Relief Fund, said the Social Security Chief Executive Officer Antonio Maynard. CEO Maynard was speaking on the program Leadership Matters on the 30th of June 2020. Under the program, successful applicants began receiving $1,000 for the next 3 months. Giving an account of funds disbursed, Maynard outlined the disbursements.
With respect to the payments began on the 20th of April as promised, with continuous and daily uploads to the various bank accounts and dispatching of checks. For the month of April, we paid 7,827 persons, amounting to approximately $7.5 million. For the month of May, we paid 6,575 persons, amounting to some $6.4 million. And for the month of June, we are expected to pay approximately 5,781 persons. It is important to note also that we have factored in about 1,600 persons who have not been paid for April or May as yet, which will bring the total payout for June at around $7.6 million, with a grand total payout of approximately $22 million.
The Social Security CEO disclosed that additional funds were approved to assist employees impacted by the global health pandemic.
The Minister of Social Security, the new Minister of Social Security, the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, in his communication dated the 26th of June 2020, has authorized an additional payment of $7 million to be made to the COVID-19 Relief Fund, in addition to the $15 million that was approved before. Subsequent to this correspondence, the Board of Directors at its meeting on the 30th of June, that was earlier today, approved same. We are therefore pleased to proceed with the payments due and payable not exceeding the sum of $22 million EC.
Maynard made it clear that the payments were not to be regular, but is a relief emergency payment, saying that they were fully legal and in proper order. Glenn Barrett, SKN Newsline.
The Ministry of Education will pursue a phased reopening of schools in St. Kitts and Nevis, says Minister of Education Janelle Powell in a national address on Wednesday.
The phased approach to the return of students is necessary in order to ensure that schools can effectively implement and sustain the health, hygiene, and safety protocols, and where possible, establish and maintain reasonable measures for physical distance in keeping with the school context. The efforts in this regard are informed by the recommendations outlined in documents from UNICEF, UNESCO, and CARFA regarding the reopening of educational institutions.
Minister Powell also disclosed that there will be a phased approach to the reopening of early childhood centers on a case-by-case basis.
Additionally, the Ministry of Education continues to work closely with the National COVID-19 Task Force. We are currently working together to address the needs of the early childhood sector and to explore the phased reopening of this very critical sector. As a nation, we are moving towards effectively living and working with the threat of COVID-19. And as more and more of our citizens transition back to the workforce, the care and welfare of our youngest citizens will remain of utmost priority. Thus, the Ministry of Education, through its Early Childhood Development Unit and in conjunction with the National Task Force for COVID-19, will begin the process of a phased approach to reopening the early childhood sector on a case-by-case basis. Proprietors and supervisors of nurseries and preschools are asked to contact the Early Childhood Development Unit at 466-2810 for guidance on the application process to commence the review of your facilities in light of the COVID-19 safety requirements. Once the early childhood facility has been determined to be compliant with the new safety and health protocols of the early childhood sector, then that nursery or center will be able to secure approval for reopening.
Meanwhile, Mr. Powell noted that the 2019-2020 school year officially ends on July 10th. The new school year begins on September 7th.
The Ministry of Education has made a decision that the provision of instructions will end on 10th July 2020, as was scheduled on the academic calendar. This means that there is no extension of the academic school year. As such, public school students in St. Kitts and Nevis will commence their summer break after 10th July 2020. Where there are school matters to complete, teachers are required to avail themselves for the completion of all duties. As we look towards the next academic year, the ministry is staunchly committed to a course of action which will increase teacher-student contact time and minimize loss of learning. Therefore, the proposed 2020-2021 school year will commence on 7th September 2020.
The minister was keen to point out that the teachers would be trained during the summer vacation on the methods of engaging students virtually.
Critical to the delivery of quality education and increased student academic engagement during the new school year is the uptooling of teachers to ensure greater comfort and competence in delivering instruction, especially via online modality. This we are planning to do during the annual summer training for teachers, which usually takes place in the month of August. It is important to note that this year, the modality and the timeline for summer training of teachers will undergo the necessary restructuring. At this time, the Ministry of Education is planning on a series of online training sessions for teachers during the last 2 weeks of August. In keeping with previous years, all teachers in the system are required to participate.
The minister encouraged students sitting CXC exams to arrive at their examination centers at least 1 hour prior to the start of the exam, so as to follow all the relevant protocols related to COVID-19 guidelines. Schools in St. Kitts and Nevis were closed abruptly late March after the first 2 coronavirus cases were announced for the Federation. Since then, students have been doing their lessons through a virtual platform under the guidance of the Ministry of Education. The ministry also procured tablet laptops for students who previously did not own or had access to computers to do virtual lessons. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. The Ministry of Culture has appointed Ms. Hazel Webster as the Carnival Director as part of the steps to strengthen the administrative operations of the Secretariat of the St. Kitts and Nevis National Carnival Committee. Culture Minister Jonelle Powell at a recent town hall meeting revealed that as part of the Comprehensive Enhancement Program, the post of a Carnival Director was being activated to help boost the management capabilities of the Secretariat and the functioning of the committee generally. Powell explained that the National Carnival Act had always provided for a director to help manage the day-to-day affairs of the Secretariat, but the position had remained inactive for decades. According to a press release from the ministry, the vacant position of Carnival Director will be filled from July 2020 by Ms. Webster, who until recently was a Senior Destination Management Coordinator for TDC Flamboyant Tours. Ms. Hazel has some 29 years in the private sector and also served as Director on the board of the St. Kitts Tourism Authority. The release added that in 2018 and 2019, Ms. Hazel volunteered her expertise as a member of the Operations Committee for Carnival that is responsible for the production of the major pageants and competitions, including the Senior and Junior Calypso Monarch competitions, Miss Swimsuit Pageant, and the Mr. GQ Contest, the National Carnival Queen Pageant, Miss Talented Teen Pageant, and others. In her role as Carnival Director, Ms. Hazel will report to the National Carnival Committee and Chairman but will have lead responsibilities to manage the daily activities of the office. She will also supervise the office, assist in coordinating the activities of its subcommittees, and will liaise with various other internal and external stakeholder groups, including bands, troops, contestants, calypsonians, soca artists, and sponsors. The director of Carnival will be a full-time employee of the Ministry of Culture. I'm Andre Huey for SKN Newsline.
It's not just iced tea and it's not cold tea. But who said we couldn't be in the middle? We are Mother Becky Quenchers, a herbal iced tea. It's a different and innovative take on using traditional herbs for tea. It's a home-brewed blend of natural organic herbs and spices, ready to drink at any time. We've turned ingredients you've used many times into something crisp, thirst-quenching, and did we mention taste awesome? Drinking tea just got better. Mother Becky Tea.
In stressful times, you need relief, a way to release your stress and care for your health. You need Serenity. Yes, Serenity Mobile Spa, where we come to your home and offer the very best in massage and spa treatment. Your health is our priority as we practice the highest hygiene procedures before, during, and after your treatment. Choose from massages to meet your physical needs, scrubs, facials, waxing, and much more. We also provide our customers a complimentary serving of refreshing local coconut water with each massage. During these restricted times, we urge our customers to stay healthy. We will come to you.
Call us at 762-0157 or 760-8899. Find us on Facebook, Serenity Mobile Spa St. or email us at serenitymobile-spa869@gmail.com.
Serenity Mobile Spa.
Auto Plus Car Wash, located on the College Street Gut, Bastille, St. Kitts. Bring your car to Auto Plus Car Wash to remove water stains, wiper marks. Get your doors, roof panel cleaned, seat floor mats, buffing, headlights, and engine wash. You get quality service at the best price at Auto Plus Car Wash. They really care for your car. Call 765-5140 or visit them on the College Street Gut, Bastille, St. Kitts. Auto Plus Car Wash, where the service is number one.
After weeks of being COVID-free, St. Kitts and Nevis has recorded another positive case of the coronavirus. Health Minister Keela Byron Nisbet on Saturday announced the positive case being one of the returning nationals that arrived on the island on June 19th.
St. Kitts and Nevis recorded one additional case of COVID-19. This brings the total number of confirmed cases to 16. The patient is a returning national who landed on June 19th, 2020 from Washington, D.C., USA. The patient has been in quarantine since arrival. Today marks the 76th time since we would have announced the 15th case of COVID-19.
The minister assured that the patient is in isolation.
Now that confirmation of COVID-19 has been received by the patient will be subjected to a compulsory isolation in order to limit the likelihood of transmission to others. The distribution of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the Federation is now as follows: 12 in St. Kitts and 4 in Nevis. The Federal Ministry of Health again reminds our citizens and residents of our individual and collective responsibility to adhere to the COVID-19 prevention measures that include physical distancing, remaining 6 feet from other persons, wearing of face masks in public, hand hygiene, washing hands after touching high-touched surfaces which may be contaminated, and social distancing, avoiding mass gatherings. These non-pharmaceutical measures will reduce your risk of exposure to the virus. Please be advised that the Federal Ministry of Health remains the only official source of information on COVID-19 in the nation. Please feel free to call the Ministry of Health at 869-467-1172 or 1108, or the COVID-19 hotline 311 if you have any questions or concerns.
This brings the number of recorded positive cases of coronavirus in St. Kitts and Nevis to 16, 15 of which have recovered. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. Shannon Hawley is the new chairman of the National Carnival Committee of St. Kitts and Nevis. Minister of Culture and Carnival, John L. Powell, revealed that after a series of discussions and careful evaluation on the way forward, he has appointed Ms. Hawley to serve as Carnival chairman as of July 2020. Shannon Hawley is an international business executive with extensive on-island and overseas experience in business development, marketing and sales. She is currently the managing director of her company, Rosamond Consulting Limited, which focuses on the citizenship by investment industry and the luxury real estate market. Powell said that outgoing chairman, Mr. Noah Mills, who delivered yeoman service for over 5 years, has agreed to offer his expertise in a consultancy role, especially in the early stages of the transition. This will be Hawley's second stint as chairman after presiding over the 40th anniversary of Carnival in 2011. At that time, she made history, becoming the youngest person and the first and only female to hold the post of chairman of National Carnival. She began her tenure as a member of the Carnival Committee in 2009, and by the following year, 2010, assumed the role of deputy chair, which she carried for 2 years before eventually advancing to the top spot as chairman in 2011. With this assignment, Hawley is making history again as the first person to ever be appointed as chairman of Carnival on 2 separate occasions. But Minister Powell explained that her appointment will bring exactly what is needed now, which is the smoothest pathway to continuity. Her background and experience in the entertainment industry is also well known. She is the owner of Refresh Juice Bar and owner of Express Events, an event management company. Over the past 10 years, however, the name Shannon Hawley has become synonymous with Express Events' VIP experience, hosted annually for the St. Kitts Music Festival. Miss Hawley started her National Carnival revelry as a youth playing mass with Stacey Hobson's Express Yourself Mass Camp, and continued throughout the years as a reveler, most recently for Carnival 2019-2020. She is best known for her out-of-the-box ideas, brand development, and her attention to detail in the execution of her events. Her role as chairman of the National Carnival Committee will focus on working in collaboration with key Carnival stakeholders and event promoters to further enhance the National Carnival's brand while maintaining and preserving its unique traditional aspects. In addition, the Minister of Culture has also confirmed the reappointment of Mrs. Marissa Hobson Newman as deputy chair, which is a role she has had for almost 5 years. Minister Powell said that more Carnival developments will be shared in the coming days. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. A St. Kitts Nevis passport issued to a Nigerian national arrested by the FBI in the U.S. for fraud was issued to him through marriage. That is the gist of a press statement from the government in response to a news article making the rounds that the Nigerian-born Roman Olorunwa Abbas was arrested as a person of interest in the U.S. by the FBI. The article said he was granted a St. Kitts and Nevis passport in February this year. While no direct suggestion was made that the passport was issued through the Citizenship by Investment program, the statement from the government Monday said any suggestion Mr. Abbas was granted the passport through the CBI is, quote, utterly false and willfully misleading, end quote. The government said Abbas got married to Shawana Nakisia Chapman, a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis by birth and the United States of America. Chapman, a resident of North Carolina, married to Abbas in Nigeria in October 2018, thereby conferring him with the right to St. Kitts and Nevis citizenship, the statement from the government said. The news article about Abbas's arrest said he was held for conspiring with several others across various parts of the world to execute huge financial scams by defrauding individuals and redirecting hefty payments meant for organizations like private bank accounts in countries like Romania, Bulgaria, and the United Arab Emirates. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris said the Citizenship by Investment program will offer new incentives as part of the effort to stimulate the economy impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking at his July 2020 press conference, Prime Minister Harris announced temporary offerings for contributions and for the real estate options.
I can report that we have taken a decision to make some revision to the contribution program as it relates to a family of 4 persons. The contribution, which is now at US $195,000 for a family of up to 4, will be reduced to $150,000 as part of a limited time offering. And then we looked at on Monday the need to provide some assistance to the real estate option. And in that regard, part of the recommendation was for the stamp duty payable to be reduced to about 2.5% over the same 6-month period, a limited time offerings with respect to the 2 options. These initiatives, we hope, will stimulate market demand, enhance our competitiveness in a market challenged by wealth loss occasioned by the dislocation of the global economy, by COVID-19, and the greater uncertainty and risk which hovers over the entire world as a consequence of COVID-19.
He said the resources obtained from the temporary offerings will be used to support the safety net programs, reduce poverty and indigence, as well as to support infrastructure development on both islands. Glenn Bart, SKN Newsline.
The opposition's St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party boycotted the opening of the National Assembly on Wednesday. The party, in a press statement Wednesday morning, said the decision was taken after thoughtful and careful consideration based on the conduct of the June 5th elections. Party leader is Dr. Denzel Douglas.
This decision was taken after thoughtful and careful deliberation based on the assessment of the massive malpractices that tarnished the political environment of the June 5th, 2020 general election, which, in our view, was neither free, fair, nor just. However, the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party remains unswervingly committed to representing the people's concerns, their desires and aspirations throughout our federation. The elected representatives of the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party refuse to be complicit in sanctioning a system of apparent election rigging and voter suppression that has been established, that has been promoted and protected by the illegitimate Harris-led coalition regime.
The party insists that the conduct of the June 5th general election misrepresented a miscarriage of justice and democracy.
In the face of the rampant corruption, massive fraud, widespread irregularities, and allegations of bribery, the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party intends to send a strong message that democracy matters, and we will not stand by and allow such practices to become the norm in our voting and election processes here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Furthermore, the party leader said he is waiting the settling of certain outstanding matters relating to the effective operations of his office after meeting with Governor General Sir Tapley Seaton.
These matters were not resolved during the last parliamentary session and must be addressed and corrected if the office of the leader of the opposition is to function effectively.
The Labour Party is challenging the conduct of the elections in 6 constituencies and has thus filed election petitions to this regard. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. The newest senator in the National Assembly, Dr. Bernicia Nisbet, was sworn in on Tuesday and is the Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly. Dr. Nisbet currently serves as the District Medical Officer responsible for communities stretching from Parsons Village to Newton Ground. She was sworn in as Senator and the next Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly during a ceremony at the Government House on Tuesday. That ceremony was attended by His Excellency the Governor-General, Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton, Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris, Deputy Prime Minister Sean Richards, Minister of Youth General Powell, and Minister of Health Akila Byron Nisbet. Giving remarks during the brief ceremony, Dr. Nisbet revealed that it was seeing Akila Byron Nisbet as a young woman serving as Deputy Speaker of the House that motivated her to become active in the democratic life of St. Kitts and Nevis. Dr. Bernicia Nisbet concluded that as medical doctor, she has always been passionate about serving and helping people, and taking this opportunity will help her to serve St. Kitts in a wider capacity. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
Members of the St. Kitts and Nevis National Assembly were sworn into Parliament as the Team Unity Coalition government begins its second term in office. The 8th July special sitting was held at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort to facilitate COVID-19 safety protocols as invited guests, members of the public, and senior officers of the civil service listened to Governor-General Sir Tapley Seaton deliver the throne speech. The Governor-General said government will pursue the agenda for the federal administration on the 6 pledges. These are 1, to build out a diversified and resilient economy, 2, to improve the quality of life of the people, 3, to protect the people and the country's borders, 4, to enhance public services and infrastructure, 5, to pursue a greener and more sustainable future, and 6, to continue implementing the good governance agenda. On the good governance agenda, Sir Tapley said, the Team Unity government will have a strong implementation commitment in the second term.
Mr. Speaker, in 2015, my government would have campaigned on a good governance agenda that has had as its fulcrum the preservation of our democracy that had been steadily eroded by the previous regime. In 2020 and beyond, this is an even more focused commitment for my government's second term in office. As a result, the following are some of the goals that will be pursued. Constitutional reform that is inclusive of electoral reform, inclusive of a mandated residency requirement for vote eligibility. This will be the subject of national consultation in order to arrive at a consensus position. Enact legislation limiting the tenure of the Prime Minister to 2 consecutive terms. Careful review of constituency boundaries. Production of a new boundaries report and parliamentary approval of revised boundaries that are in line with the demographic shifts in the local population, rather than being contrived through political expedience. Review of public procurement legislation that provides a fair chance for the private sector to bid on and supply goods and services to the public sector. Review constitution and laws to ensure better governance arrangement in and between the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Nevis Island Administration, NIA. Establish a tenders board that builds in transparency and scrutiny with regards to the award of major government contracts, etc. Complete operationalizing of the Integrity in Public Life Act 2013 for parliamentarians and other senior government officials.
Mr. Michael Perkins remains a Speaker of the National Assembly, and he gets a Deputy Speaker in Dr. Bernicia Nisbet, who sits as a Senator on the government benches. Glenn Batt, SKN Newsline.
For all your printing needs at top-notch quality, go to Digital Print Plus, located on Princess Street, Bastyr, St. Kitts. At Digital Print Plus, you get the best in business cards, letterheads, envelopes, wristbands, tent cards, rack cards, flyers, brochures, logo designs, posters, photos, architectural designs, 3D renderings, and so much more. Digital Print Plus gives you the best quality at competitive prices. Contact us at 767-7468 or email digitalprintskn@gmail.com or follow us on Facebook at digitalprintskn. Digital Print Plus for all your printing needs at the best quality. Now you can have SKN Newsline on the go. Introducing SKN Newsline Android mobile app. Search SKN Newsline in the Google Play Store. Download the app free and stay up to date with TV news in St. Kitts and Nevis in the palm of your hands. With this app, you can watch our news reports, watch our live news feed on SK Newsline TV, engage with us and other app users in the chat room, look at our special features, send us news tips, and call us directly. It's news on the go. The SK Newsline Android mobile app. Download it free today.
Commercial signs, decal printing, canvas prints, license plates, posters. We at Multigraphics are dedicated to providing quality products and service to our customers. Our team takes pride in the craftsmanship and is passionate about its work. Every job, large or small, is important. Most of our customers come to us through referrals. That's because our number one priority is service. We serve a wide variety of customers, such as restaurants, retail stores, manufacturers, trucking companies, and many more. Our capabilities include design, production, and installation. How can we help? We are located at Bird Rock at the Woods Right compound. Call us at 869-763-1511 or 784-491-7599. Multigraphics.
KVK Enterprises at Boyd's Housing Development, Trinity Parish, St. Kitts. For all your t-shirt printing, banners and signs, promotional products, shipping, motivational speeches, computer classes, agro-processing, art and craft, and desktop publishing. Come to KVK Enterprises at Boyd's Housing Development, Trinity, St. Kitts. Telephone 661-0118 or 765-7270. Email drkhrystus@kvklives.com or visit www.kvklives.com. KVK Enterprises.
Former Chief Medical Officer Dr. Patrick Martin believes the continued state of emergency and restrictions on certain aspects of the economy is not necessary at this time, considering that the Federation was COVID-free for most of the last 2 months. He was speaking recently in an interview on Let's Talk St. Kitts and Nevis on Voice of the Caribbean Radio.
Well, the state of emergency is not necessary. The Public Health Act has all of the necessary measures which are required to detect, contact trace, isolate, and treat persons. Not only a public health matter, but it's an economic, financial, and educational matter for obvious reasons. And so the public policy and the decision makers have to pivot the country to deal with all four concerns: public health, economic, macroeconomic, that is, financial at the level of the individual, and also education, thousands of young persons out of school.
Dr. Martin believes, in light of the COVID-free status the Federation had for several weeks, that the education sector should have begun opening, including other sectors of the economy.
My view is that this approach could have started in early May, but was not started in early May. I think it had to do something with the elections. And so they've now started in mid-June, late June. It is important to get as much of the domestic economy going as possible so that we can alleviate the pain and suffering on the thousands. We haven't gotten any data as to the number of persons who lost jobs, but it has to be in the thousands. I was just looking at something here. We had about 29,000 persons employed as of July 20. That's coming from Social Security data, 29,000. I am guessing that we have lost about 5,000 out of that 29,000, especially from the hospitality, manufacturing sectors and related sectors, so including the self-employed. So quite a number of persons have gone from self-sufficient to now dependent on the government.
The health authorities have always maintained the need to continue the guidelines and phased loosening of the restrictions despite the closed borders and the COVID-free status for several weeks. Chief of Staff at the JNF Hospital, Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, said previously that maintaining the guidelines was necessary.
We have persons who are continually returning home, and so at any point in time the virus can be reintroduced into the population. Just at the last briefing we spoke about New Zealand and the fact that they were COVID free, and they now have new cases with a couple of persons who came back home to visit their terminally ill patients. And the minister just said that we cannot keep our borders closed forever because we can't stifle the country economically. So at some point in time, we're going to be opening our borders. And so I don't believe that it's anything that we need to shout and celebrate. It's an achievement, yes, but it's just describing the state that we are at this point in time, and it's something that can change. And so we cannot relax the non-pharmaceutical measures that we have been using, and so we need to continue to do our social distancing. We need to continue to wear a mask so that when the virus does come in, we can control the spread and we don't have widespread community spread within our country. Thank you.
Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. Supervisor of Elections Elvin Bailey said the final voters list for the June 5th general elections was ready as early as the 25th of May and not on the week of the election as alleged by the opposition. Mr. Bailey was a guest on Freedom Radio's Issues program on Tuesday.
But in this case, the final list was done on the 22nd of May, and all of the political parties got theirs on the 25th of May.
So there wasn't a list then, that was a new list that was issued the week of election?
Nope. They signed for it, eh?
Yeah.
They signed in our book to collect the list. They got the list on the 25th of May. The election was on the 5th of June.
The opposition St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party had alleged that it was not able to vet the voters list and challenged the removal of names because it was only given the final list on the eve of Election Day. SK Newsline on Wednesday asked Chairman of the Labour Party, Dr. Terence Drew, about Mr. Bailey's comments.
We're going to challenge all those things in court. And so I will not comment on those things. Not that I can't, but just because, advice from my lawyer and our consultants, that we should not really speak to these specifics of the court matter at this time. But the answers to those things will come.
Meanwhile, Mr. Bailey also said that contrary to allegations, the electoral office was open in the days leading up to and on Election Day.
Almost 400 persons collected their cards the Tuesday, the Wednesday, the Thursday, the Friday. And I was in the office in Nevis Friday morning before 6 o'clock when somebody came to collect their card. The office was
What time
open.
on Friday morning was it open? Because on election day, that's election day?
St. Kitts was open 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Nevis's office was open at 6 o'clock.
6 election petitions have been filed in the High Court alleging voter irregularity and bribery. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. Displaced Marriott workers met with hotel management and the government earlier this week to get answers from the authorities as to when they can expect to return to work and the status of their employment. Representing the government were Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris and Minister of Commerce Wendy Phipps. SK Newsline received voice notes and clips reportedly recorded during the meeting. Some workers appeared irritable, as seen in this video making the rounds on social media.
So today, you get money salary handsomely. The Prime Minister get money, being a pandemic that you are here. I want to know what will happen to me going forward after today. We need answers.
If we heal, we want to go away with answers, not to come back another time, because right now, time is precious. So we need to go away with answers. And I think that you guys wasn't prepared enough, because we needed everybody in certain department to be here so we could go away with confidence, with more answers, because as I know, nothing is in place for the workers.
The stimulus package is very good, but it cannot do nothing for me. I need my money. If the bar is not open and the hotel is not open back soon, I love my job. Everybody I love my job.
When a person is to be paid out, normally you get paid on the last year that you work. However, my question to you is, If I'm not laid off, but my salary has been decreased, let's say I was getting 4,000, but now I'm getting 1,000. How, and I'm getting that for 3-4 months. How does that play into my 1 year? Now, does that redundancy, does that count as part of my year?
Prime Minister Harris sought to assure workers that the hospitality sector will open up in due course.
Government is committed to a stronger and safer future. And the stronger and safer future means that the government will be with you doing those things that are necessary to keep you safe. That the government will take action that is required to ensure that the economy can open again, and that the economy will be healthy and strong enough to create job opportunities for the people who are willing and able to work.
But chairman of the opposition St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, Dr. Terence Drew, said the workers' response is due to what he believes is a poor response by the government to the impacts of COVID-19 on the local economy.
And just looking at the meeting at Marriott, one would quickly recognize that the government's plan to deal with the pandemic, at least from the economic standpoint, it has been weak thus far. People are hurting. I'm telling you, I'm meeting people who can't afford to buy food. That is why in the campaign we had made a decision that we'll use a lot of the campaign funds and divert it to buy at least basic foods for people. But of course, we depend on donations, and that is a limited scope. But people need work. People need to be able to satisfy their basic needs. One of the things I'm calling for is an increase in the stimulus package. You cannot give people less than minimum wage. How can you give somebody who probably working in a hotel making, let's say, $3,000-4,000, and then you're going to reduce that to $1,000, and then you expect that person to pay their mortgage, the electricity is still there, the water bill is still there. There might be a moratorium, but those bills are accumulating.
The Marriott workers have been out of work since the abrupt closure of the resort at the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic. The travel industry globally has been heavily hit by the pandemic, as only a few countries in the region have reopened their borders. The St. Kitts Nevis government has not yet indicated when the borders would reopen, but pointed out that it will do so in a strategic manner. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
It is important that the people of St. Kitts focus on excellence in a competitive tourism environment, said Minister of Tourism Lindsay Grant at the official opening of newly installed viewing decks at the iconic Black Rock site on the northern coast of St. Kitts. The viewing decks is the most recent upgrade at Black Rocks, which marks the end of one of several lava flows that originate from Mount Liamiga volcano. The stunning rock formations have been an attraction for both residents and visitors for many years. In a collaboration between the government of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Whitegate Corporation, over $1.9 million have been spent so far to enhance the location that now includes roads, walkways, vendor cottages, and now the viewing decks. Minister Grant spoke about more upgrades to come, as well as the need to maintain competitive in tourism.
In the very near future, there are plans for a mini sugarcane museum within the Black Rock environs, for sea grape planting exercise, and for the construction of a stairwell with handrails to the beach below. I have been advised that if you think that the views from up here on the pasture are stunning, you will be blown away by what the beachside has to offer. Wind-sculpted rock formations, 400-year-old lava flows frozen in time, wading pools and a blowhole that have been used for decades by Black Rock residents to master their swimming abilities, for which they are very well known. Mr. Hazel, Whitegate, I can't wait for us to embark on this new project that promises to deliver a whole new dimension to the Black Rocks experience. We must always remember that tourism is a final good. This means that as a destination competing for market share, we have always to bring our A game and remain laser focused on delivering excellence in all that we have to offer. We are in the business of creating brand ambassadors who will help us to market the destination among family, among friends, and on social media. The fascinating images, immersive, authentic experiences, and the human interest stories that will be added to the comprehensive Black Rocks tour are exactly the substance of a compelling, competitive tourism product that fuels connections and creates lasting memories that linger long after our guests have returned home.
The Black Rocks Enhancement Project started in 2016 and has transformed the site from a general open field to one that is of special tourism attraction. Glenn Bart, SKN Newsline.
Minister General Powell said he does not believe he should resign based on the latest judgment in the court matter involving a law firm owned by him and Minister Lindsey Grant. In an interview with SK Newsline, Minister Powell said the court matter was public knowledge prior to the elections, and both he and Mr. Grant were elected by the people of their constituencies.
The judgment that was handed down is nothing new in substance. The people of this country knew about that particular court case involving Lindsey Grant and I for quite some time now. We put ourselves before the public, and the public overwhelmingly chose us over competitors and over the Labour Party in our respective constituencies in the last general elections. Bearing in mind what they knew that was in that case, the judgment that was handed down recently, or published recently, was a judgment speaking about the technicalities and the technical deficiencies that existed in our case, and not on the substantive matters that were raised. It did not speak to the fact that till now we have not had an opportunity to be heard on the matter. But at the same time, the court has spoken. We respect, as officers of the court, we respect the decision of the court, albeit along technical lines and not on the substantive matter. And we maintain our position that we did nothing wrong, that the court itself has said, and that has not changed, that the claimant in the claim is not entitled to any repayments of monies because no monies were missing.
The suit was filed by Tanzania Tobin Tanzil, a former client of Grant and Powell, who claimed that a sum of $460,000 was misappropriated by the law firm. The money in question is related to a condominium purchase under the Citizenship by Investment program. 2 attempts to file an appeal of a default judgment from 2018 failed as the applications were denied due in large part to the defendants not meeting certain deadlines. SK Newsline asked Mr. Powell why they failed to meet these deadlines twice in filing their appeal.
We had counsel, and we operated through the advice of counsel. When you look at even the initial judgment, and I smile because the original judgment by the court saw our side interpreting the timing based on the rules. With one time, the claimant's counsel read the same rule and interpreted a different time, and the court interpreted that same rule using it with a third time. And so, these things happen in law, and at the end of the day, we through our counsel have to take responsibility for it.
Meanwhile, Mr. Powell was asked whether, from a professional standpoint, he regrets this episode of his legal career.
Whether you're a lawyer or you're in any other profession, you don't want to see any form of blemish on your record, whether it be big or small. And so, for me personally, I'd be lying if I said I did not prefer not to have a record without this this particular blemish or allegation on it, but things happen. Things happen in life. Life is not perfect. I think that we are known well enough within the legal profession and fraternity. People know us, how we operate, how we perform. It certainly has not in any way affected any of our clients or potential clients. The law firm continues to operate as it did before.
The appeal court heard arguments in the case on June 10 and 29 and denied the application of Powell and Grant for leave to appeal the decision of High Court Judge His Lordship Justice Eddie Ventos in refusing to set aside the default judgment against them and in favor of Mr. Tanzania Tobin Tanzil. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. Depending on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on St. Kitts and Nevis, some Carnival festivities this year will be transitioned to virtual events, according to Chairman of the National Carnival Committee, Shannon Hawley. Ms. Hawley was speaking on the weekly web series The Youth's Toolkit, which aired on Saturday and Sunday.
We have to take into consideration the financial aspect of things. And we understand that, of course, Carnival is a social activity. There's no physical distancing per se when you are in a Juve band or a Grand Parade troupe. So everything that we do for this year, we have to take into consideration upfront. These very, very peculiar times and sensitive times. So what I have planned for the future may not be what I have planned for this year. For this year, the intention, and things may change because we never know what may happen over the next few months. We've been hearing that the possibility of St. Kitts reopening the borders. We know that it is, we can't stay closed forever. So we know that St. Kitts is reopening the borders. We have seen around the region and we've seen around the world what has been happening when borders have been reopened. So everything that we do for 2020 has to take these things into consideration, that COVID is with us. So for 2020, the aim is, of course, to host a number of virtual events. And the aim is also to scale back significantly on the typical Carnival festivities. And I think people need to understand this, and I think people will understand this.
Ms. Hawley gave some insights into what may happen to Carnival for 2020.
So we have to look at things as a worst case scenario. So the intention is to have both. So both virtual events, and you will see a lot of virtual events leading up to the December period. So you will see a lot of virtual, whether it's a day fete, a virtual band clash, a virtual bandstand, which are some of the things that we're looking at, where you will have the opportunity to experience that fete setting virtually, number one, as the days lead up to that December festivity period. And then we foresee that there can be events where social distancing can take place in an outdoor setting. So there are a number of national carnival events that we have looked at, that we have realized, okay, well, you know, we can seat individuals 6 feet apart. We can have individuals in an outdoor setting, patrons in an outdoor setting, which is critical because we know that indoor settings are an issue as it relates to COVID-19. So we know that there are a number of national carnival events, specifically the national carnival shows. You know, you have the Queen Show, you have the Talented Teen, GQ, swimwear competitions that all can take place with physical distancing. So those are some of the shows that we are looking at to take place during the month of December, because we know social distancing can happen with those shows.
In an exclusive interview with SK Newsline, Minister of Culture Janelle Powell also hinted to doing virtual events for Carnival festivities.
We are still having discussions on when school opens, how does that happen, what happens, employment, opening the borders, tourism, you know, all these are discussions that are live at the moment. But if we are going to have a carnival, obviously certain planning does need to start now. People need to know in advance what they can do for what they can't do. And so we've already started engaging stakeholders to do so. I think if the answer is going to be yes, we can't expect it to be business as usual. It must be very much scaled back version of what we're accustomed to. But whatever we do would have to bear in mind the necessary COVID-19 protocols. We've been able to, as we've seen, pull off a number of virtual events in recent months, probably more successfully election campaigns on a virtual platform that may or may not have, be the way that we have to go. But we're engaging the public, we're engaging the stakeholders, we're engaging the health officials, and ultimately we will have to engage the government from a financial standpoint.
The St. Kitts Music Festival was one of the major entertainment events that was cancelled as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ms. Hawley said the National Carnival Committee will be meeting with stakeholders to determine the plans for the 2020 Carnival. The Youth's Toolkit airs on SKN Unchained Facebook page on Saturdays and on the SK Newsline Facebook page on Sundays at 5 p.m. A radio version airs on Voice of the Caribbean Radio Mondays at 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. Failure to wear masks in public places could become a ticketable offense, according to head of the COVID-19 task force, Abdia Samuel. He was addressing the most recent weekly briefing of the National Emergency Operating Center, NEOC.
And some of the recommendations going forward in order for us to get some compliance is to, one, host a number of consultations, meetings with stakeholders, the general public, via various means. Two, we also look at the potential of making it a ticketable offense, whereby persons will basically have to pay a ticket. They will be ticketed for not wearing masks. We have seen how some curriculum leaders have echoed the sentiment of moving from having to take you to court and empowering the police officers to be able to give you a ticket. We look at the cost of these tickets. At present, if you are taken to court, you can pay anywhere up to $5,000 or 6 months in prison, or you can actually be fined both, which is the 6 month and still pay the $5,000. We are saying maybe we looked at some ranging of prices or costs of these ticketable offense, whereby if you don't pay, the ticket itself can become an automatic summons after 10 days. These are some of the recommendations that have come forward in our discussions as a task force. The reason for this is, again, for us to be able to have persons become compliant to these regulations, which are going to help us to remain safe against the impact of this virus.
Meanwhile, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Hazel highlighted the importance of wearing masks.
It's very important to recognize the importance of wearing the face mask, because it's protecting you from the other person and the other person from you. And they provided us some additional information. Another study published in the American Journal of Infection Control just highlights that as human beings, we are constantly touching our face. And it's normal for us to touch our face as many as 23 times in 1 hour. And that's a mean. And so it's important also to try and keep your hands out of your face, nose, and mouth. And the study goes on to say that the coronavirus that causes COVID-19, it can remain present and infectious on the outer layer of your face mask for up to 7 days. And I'm sharing this information to underscore the need for us to manage our face masks properly. All right, so those of us who wear the disposable face masks, it's important for us to discard of them properly in the bin and always wash your hands after taking off the face mask. And then those of us who wear the cloth or the fabric, the locally produced face mask, I would recommend that you launder or wash these masks at the end of every day.
Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. Decisions regarding when and how the borders will reopen will involve all stakeholders, says Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris. Speaking on his Leadership Matters series on Tuesday, Dr. Harris stressed that the government will not be quick to open the borders, but will make decisions based on the feedback of stakeholders.
Decisions regarding the time and how we open up will not be made by the whim and fancy of any person or group of persons. That is why in St. Kitts and Nevis we have adopted the all-of-society approach, where input is had from a diverse cross-section of persons and interests. We are aware of the advice of the World Health Organization to nations that in addition to fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, they must also consider the social and economic impact of the measures taken on their citizens and residents.
Prime Minister Harris noted that the Federation has made progress in reducing the possibilities of deaths from the COVID-19 pandemic and to gradually return people to work. He said that the same procedure will be adopted as it relates to reopening the hospitality sector.
This is the most challenging, since this calls for the opening up of our borders to larger and more regular influx of persons, many of whom will be returning from areas which are coronavirus hotspots, meaning that the likelihood that they will transmit the virus on arrival is greater. If we are not careful in opening up our borders, the consequences could be severe. We could experience, for example, the overwhelming of our limited quarantine facilities, the overwhelming of our security forces in managing quarantine facilities at several locations, the overwhelming of our health sectors, and eventually many persons can die. Our approach must be that we will do things properly. We need to take time to set up systems that minimize fatalities and preserve the health of our people, because we need a healthy people to keep our economy open.
Hotels in the Federation have largely remained closed since the country first went on lockdown late March into early April. With the borders closed, there are no international tourists coming to the island, but with most visitors to St. Kitts and Nevis coming from the United States, which is still the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic, it is still not certain how soon the borders will reopen. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
Training for persons in the tourism industry to operate safely in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic is mandatory if a tourism-oriented business will operate. Tourism authorities have been meeting with stakeholders over the past several weeks as protocols are worked out to return tourism activity to the country. Speaking on Leadership Matters on Tuesday, 21st July, Minister of Tourism Lindsay Grant reaffirmed that training in regards to COVID-19 protocols to be observed in every sector of tourism is continuing, but warned business owners who do not get involved with the training.
The businesses, the restaurants, or the bars who do not avail themselves of the training facilities in conjunction with NIAC and the tourism stakeholders will not be allowed to open. It's just as very simple as that. Because after the training exercises, you're going to get a certification, and the bars and the restaurants that don't have those certifications will not be allowed to open. It is very, very simple, because we have to protect the health and the well-being of our citizens. That begins on Wednesday the 22nd and continues until August the 27th, 2020.
Grant pointed out that the service to be provided to visitors and patrons will be, by necessity, different, and wants to ensure a smooth transition when the country's borders are reopened. Glenn Bart, SKN Newsline.
Taiwan's technical mission donated vegetable seeds to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture on Thursday. During the donation ceremony at the conference room at the Department of Agriculture in Lagreet, Minister of Agriculture Alexis Jeffers said the ministry is doubling its efforts in reviving its programs to ensure that the agriculture sector contributes meaningfully to the overall development of the country.
Our government is seeking to bring about meaningful agricultural transformation that meets multiple goals simultaneously. And I dare say I speak for and on behalf of the Cabinet of the federal government that every effort has been made over the years to ensure that our farmers continue to produce the infrastructure that is necessary to ensure their production continues is there. In spite of the challenges, perhaps in water and otherwise, we certainly will continue to ensure that our farmers are supported on a day-to-day basis.
He also acknowledged the contributions of Taiwan to the ongoing development in agriculture.
Mr. Ambassador, I want to thank you for your kind generosity. I want you to convey our thanks and appreciation to the government and people of the Republic of China, Taiwan. And of course, as I said before, this effort is indicative of our long-standing partnership and relationship, and I want it to continue to grow from strength to strength. You have our support as a partner in this relationship, and we'll continue to ensure that we foster all of the ingredients that are needed to make sure it continues to grow. Thank you very much for your kind generosity, sir.
When the world is upside down, and then food security has become a very important issue. That's why, as a strong ally of St. Kitts and Nevis, Taiwan is very willing to provide assistance in this important matter. Today, we are very pleased to donate some seeds to the Ministry of Agriculture in the hope that the farmers here can use our seeds to expand their production. So the goal of food security in this country can be reached earlier.
Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. Issues at the West Line bus terminal as it relates to how buses assemble and operate at the terminal are still unresolved, but buses are back in operation, says President of the Sugar City Bus Association, Bernard Boland. Mr. Boland explained the issue affecting the smooth operations of buses at the terminal, which is still being renovated for several months.
Well, it has to do a lot with how the bus drivers assemble themselves in the terminal, which would in turn affect the way the traffic flows in the terminal. So the bus drivers come in and they queue up with their faces turned to the northern side of the island and their backs turned to the southern side, which is the seaside. And there are about 3 or 4 of them that lining up are queued up with their faces turned to the west side and their backs turned to the east side. However, when that allotted space is filled, the rest buses would queue up alongside them, which would, in argumentative terms, be double parking. The officer, however, said that we are not allowed to do double parking at the terminal, which in sense it is the law. But our argument was that we have been doing this for about a year now. It is the only way that we can conduct our business at the terminal because of the limited space that we have there. And so that was just a simple argument that we understand that it's against the law to do double parking. Of course, we agree. And we don't want to disrespect the officers or disrespect the law. But we have been operating this way for about a year now.
Mr. Boland explained that the issue came to a head early in the week, prompting an emergency meeting with the bus drivers on Thursday. That meeting affected transportation to and from the western side of the island, and Mr. Boland apologizes to commuters.
The bus drivers have returned to normalcy since about midday or just a little after midday yesterday because we would have asked them to return to normalcy. So the bus drivers have returned to normalcy, and we do apologize to the traveling public for the hiccup in getting around yesterday morning, but we almost agree, Mr. Huey, that there are times that we just have to do certain stuff so that we can make our business much better than what it is, and it's only us trying to make our business a lot better for us and also the traveling public.
The association met with the police and Minister of Transport, Lindsey Grant, and were promised a solution would be put in place. He said, however, that at the time of this interview, he had not heard back from the authorities. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
As countries continue to adapt to the COVID-19 pandemic, ECCB Governor Timothy Antoine said special attention will be paid to the micro and small business sectors. According to the governor, about 50% of the employment in the OECS is generated by micro and small businesses. Support for the sectors was among matters discussed at the ECCB Monetary Council meeting in late July.
One of the initiatives that the Council discussed today is a partial credit guarantee scheme, which we are essentially on the cusp of launching. They've started with a pilot in 2 countries, and let me quickly explain. That is a facility that would allow financial institutions, banks or credit unions, to make loans to businesses, mainly small businesses, up to $300,000 with a guarantee of about 75%, $225,000. That is important because what happens now is that the bank is liquid, but yet the banks are not making as many loans as the business community would like. And very often people say the banks have money, but they're not lending. And so this facility is intended to incentivize banks, credit unions, and the development banks, because we're going to also offer it to the development banks, to be able to make loans to small businesses for expansion, for startups, as the case may be. And so that, as I said, was started last month in 2 countries, I think St. Lucia and Dominica, and it will be expanded very quickly to St. Kitts and Nevis and other member countries later this year. And a formal launch is being planned.
The ECCB governor said the central bank has reached out to the World Bank for assistance in training for small businesses in the sub-region. Glenn Bad, SKN Newsline.
Some communities experienced power outages during the passage of the tropical storm on Wednesday, while a tree fell on a house on Market Street. Jomo Williams, general manager of Skelec, provided an update on the power outages experienced and the restoration work being done.
Skelec wishes to advise the general public that in terms of restoration, there are just 3 areas that remain affected. On the Sandy Point feeder, Green Tree, Cornfapes, Halfway Tree, that is expected to be completed by 8 o'clock tonight. The Keon feeder, Molyneux and Mansion, that transformer would need replacing, and that is expected to be done in the morning. And the Frigate Bay feeder, we are about 90% complete, and that will be done later tonight. Any other person experiencing power outage at this time, you are asked to call 465-2013 to get in touch with our operators, or 465-2000, and leave your information with our IVR system. We constantly back check these systems and verify all the information, and we once again apologize for the inconvenience that was caused today, and promise you that Skelec is forever working to get everything under control. Thank you.
Deputy National Disaster Coordinator of NEMA, Clarissa Langley-Stevens, gave a damage assessment report where she made a disclosure of the fallen tree on Market Street, Bastyr.
Fire and Rescue Services responded to a call of a downed tree on Market Street, Central Market Street, and that tree fell on a home where a family resided. Thankfully, there were no injuries. However, the report indicates that the tree needs to be assessed because it's a really huge tree, one of age, and that assessment will be done tomorrow, but there was some mild clearing of the area so that the family can have access to the home, and so we are very thankful for that. Community and Social Development has reached out to the family to ensure that the support that can be given to them was made available. So I want to thank the general public who contacted the NEOC with that information. Damage assessment. The Damage Assessment Committee indicated that the assessment done at Old Road Bay area was a very successful one, and the area was deemed safe and clear, and we are very thankful for that. Further assessments will be done as we progress into tonight and to tomorrow so that these updates can be provided to the general public. Please note that the emergency contact numbers, you can still reach the NEOC via the NEMA office numbers, which would be 467-1151 or 466-5100, that's 5100. And you can contact the NEOC at 466-7453 or 466-9626 or 466-3874. Please note that any information that you share with us is given immediate attention so that we can ensure that all of us continue to remain safe.
Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. Dignitaries on Friday paid tribute to the victims and survivors of the Christina disaster in a special sitting of the Nevis Island Assembly on Friday to mark the 50th anniversary of arguably the greatest tragedy experienced in St. Kitts and Nevis. The session featured addresses by former Prime Ministers of St. Kitts and Nevis, former Premiers, and Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris and Premier Mark Brantley. Former Prime Minister and the nation's only living national hero, Sir Kennedy Simmons, who was the only doctor operating on Nevis at the time of the tragedy, recalled when he was first alerted of the incident back in 1970.
I decided to go to the hotel to check in and have lunch. As I drove into the yard, the manager ran out into the yard shouting, "Don't get out! Don't get out!" They just called to say that you must come to Charlestown quick because the Christina gone down and they're bringing in survivors. So I just turned around and headed for Charlestown. I eventually set up a base of operations at the hospital and requested, in fact, the police to send word around on the western, particularly on the western side of the island, at all possibly points of entry, to advise persons who were bringing in survivors to bring everybody to the hospital, because some people were going down to the pier at Charlestown. I set up a triad system, though that name was not used in those days. 65 survivors were brought to the hospital that day. I examined, documented, and treated 63 of them. When the government team of Dr. Sebastian and Dr. Kelsick arrived that night, they treated the other 2 survivors.
And having made reference to the memorial which is just west of us here, a memorial which was established in 2000 to commemorate the 30th anniversary. And may I say, Mr. President, it was not intended to create any friction. It was really created to ensure that there was that visible memorial to which people can come almost as a pilgrimage, if we want to call it that, to show our respects for those persons whose lives were sacrificed for the well-being or for the good, seeking to do good for their families and for our country.
My father had requested that I return home to attend what was called then the all-day service of the Wesleyan Holiness Church, called then the Pilgrim Holiness Church, on August Monday in St. Kitts. It was that same day in the afternoon that this sad event took place.
The Nevis Island administration is an institution that must be treasured, be valued, be uplifted. The Nevis Island administration must carry out the functions that those dead people wanted to see. Remember, every time you step in Parliament, every time you step in Cabinet, every time you're going to address somebody on with a podium, remember, Remember those who died, teachers, students, civil servants, some of them only to buy a dress, to buy simple lingerie, who went to St. Kitts and never made it back. Do not underestimate, do not abandon your government that people fought so hard for.
I believe that those of you who were adults at that time, and we did hear it today, can recall exactly where you were when it happened and how you reacted. We heard this from Sir Kennedy, from Vance, from Parry, and from Denzel, all the speakers before me. No doubt, from time to time, you, the survivors and families of the victims, react to triggers which remind you of the pain and horror associated with this horrific event. But no matter how painful, it is an event which we must never forget.
On that fateful day, the men and women who sacrificed so much in the service of others indeed became heroes. I pause, Mr. President, to remember Arthur Anslin, Captain Arthur Anslin of blessed memory, and Captain Winston Skeet, both of whom gave heroic service on that fateful day.
The MV Christina was a 160-foot government-owned and operated ferryboat which worked the route between Bastyr and Charlestown. On August 1, 1970, the vessel sank on its way from St. Kitts that afternoon, killing 233 persons. 91 passengers survived. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
In an unexpected development, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party has given notice of intent to abandon its legal challenges against results in the 5th June general elections of St. Kitts and Nevis. In a statement issued 31st July, the Labour Party states, quote, "Democracy for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis has suffered a crushing blow based on a legal technicality identified by Dr. Timothy Harris and other defendants in the Unity Coalition regime that willfully ignores compelling evidence of fraud," end quote. However, the statement makes no reference to the nature of the technicality, but goes on to insist that their challenge had strong legal merit, supported by eyewitnesses and reports from electoral agents. The Labour Party contended that there was widespread irregularities in the voting process, numerous cases of bribery, and massive corruption and fraud. The electoral petitions were filed in court on 26 June 2020, making claims of fraud and irregularities in 6 of the 8 seats contested on St. Kitts in 5th June general elections. Several persons have expressed surprise in the turn of events, leading some to speculate about the said technicality. Attempts to contact Labour Party representatives as well as their legal team was unsuccessful up to the time of filing this report. Glenn Barth, SKN Newsline.